What's more about Detroit and winning? Those Lions. And I know we're going to get to the Tigers too, who picked up another big series win. But there is some chatter coming out of training camp, and it's dealing with contract stuff. And you know what? My mind instantly goes to Brad Holmes saying, maybe you guys don't see the needs, but sometimes we take players that we know will fill needs that will pop up at a certain time. And he referenced at a certain spot J-Mo. Now I'm wondering what role this draft this year is going to play in filling some of those needs potentially.
Yes, and because Frank Ragnow wasn't somebody that I think any of us counted on there being any dissatisfaction or any sort of chatter when it comes to him being unhappy with his contract. But when you really go into the details of his contract, I can't blame him in a lot of ways. And on a couple of days ago, after our show went on, of course, so we didn't get to discuss it at the time, there was a Sports Illustrated article.
Life.
Yeah, such is life. A Sports Illustrated article that came out. One of many reports. It was by Christian Booher, in which it had a quote from friend of the network, Dave Burkett. And the quote goes as such. I believe that I have it, but if we don't, I will just read it. Ragnow, thank you, JB Smoove. Ragnow also is unhappy with the extension he signed in 2021 that made him the highest paid center in the NFL, Burkett wrote. He has 2 years left in his deal and is due to make $9.15 million this fall, which is underpaid, I would say. And just to give a couple of more details, though Ragnow was made the highest paid center in the league at the time of his deal, his contract now ranks fourth at his position in terms of average annual value, and he does not have any guaranteed money over the final 2 years of his current contract, which is NFL contracts are crazy, man, and that's just
no guaranteed money over the final 2 years.
That's insane. Wow. Yeah, he's still under contract for 2 more years, and he remains one of the best in the league at his position, and was Pro Football Focus's highest graded run blocking center with a 90.9 grade in 2024. And Frank Ragnow has also been a second team All-Pro the last 2 years. Was also a second team All-Pro in 2020. We all, I think, would agree. If we want to put our homer glasses on, we would say that he's the best center in the league, but at absolute worst, he's the second best center after Creed Humphrey. But right now, Creed Humphrey has a higher average annual value than him. So does Cam Jurgens of the Philadelphia Eagles and Drew Dahlman of the Chicago Bears. And Frank Ragnow slots right in at fourth as currently constructed in terms of average annual value. But with this, also in conjunction with a little bit of maybe dissatisfaction Alex Anzalone has with his current contract. Kool-Aid, I got to ask you this.
Yes, sir.
Is this something or is this nothing? Are you worried? Are you still calm?
Well, it's not just in conjunction with Alex Anzalone. There's a big somebody not here right now also because of some of the similar type stuff of contracts. That's the Darius Smith.
Yeah.
So it is a something. And we knew it was going to be a something. We just didn't know where it was going to come from. When you draft as well as he is, when you have the success as much as the Lions have, someone is going to get left out in the cold. And now I think we're coming up against that precipice. You know that you're going to pay Hutch. You know that you're going to pay Brian Branch. There's more people you're going to pay. You know you're going to pay Jahmyr Gibbs. Now there's a situation in a time where I do believe this is a something. How long until there's another name like David Montgomery? You know, this team, if they're going to continue to move forward, unless this cap space absolutely explodes, they got a lot of people they're going to have to pay. Now, before we thought that it was going to be a lot of the young players that we're going to have to effectively, hey, look, you can't keep all these drafted players. But, you know, this is an interesting one here. It is really because we understand how important Frank Ragnow is, but I also understand some of the sentiment of some of the people in the chat. May says, pay Frank. But I saw another one and I lost where it went because this is the other aspect of it where they say, isn't he on the verge of retirement?
Well, that's
so you got both ends of the spectrum with fans there. I think it's a something, but how much?
Well, that's what's Frank Ragnow is one of the most unique players in the NFL, in my opinion, and also there's no bigger warrior in all of probably professional sports than him because Yes, Frank Ragnow has had a lot of injuries, but he also rarely misses games. The only season that he missed a lot of games was 2021, and that was due to his toe injury, which was turf toe, but he also ended up getting surgery for a torn plantar plate. But it's been far from the only injury he's suffered. He fractured his throat in 2020 and finished the effing game, which is insane, by the way. In 2023, Frank Ragnow, remember, only missed one game after having meniscus surgery, and then last season he partially tore his pec and basically continued playing and barely even missed a beat. So Frank Ragnow has been an absolute warrior, and not only has he has played at an elite level despite really never being healthy, which, God, you really want to reward a guy like that. You really want to give him a contract that he's deserving of, because $9.10 million is just not enough for him this year. But at the end of the day, you also worry about, he's under contract for 2 more years. Do you really want to extend him? Is he going to play 4 or 5 more years? I don't necessarily know, because at some point, these are going to catch up to him. He's only 29, so he's going to be in his age 29 season this year. He's only in his 8th season, so presumably he could play a couple more years. But Frank Ragnow, it's not just, like with every player, it's not just as simple as, oh yeah, he's the best center in the league, pay him as such. Part of being great as a team is sometimes getting a lot of production out of underpaid players, and certainly we've gotten that out of players under their rookie contract, out of Alex Anzalone the last couple of years, out of Frank Ragnow, and unfortunately it's just another obstacle that the Lions and Brad Holmes have to try to deal with.
Isn't this the to even greater degree? I feel like for the offensive line, for the offensive line's sake, you want to be able to make this guy happy. You know, even if there's some middle ground that they can reach even before the season starts, because that to me is a little bit different when you start entering not just 2 years on his contract, it's 2 years with no guaranteed money. That to me is where I do believe that. Is there any middle ground there where the Detroit Lions and Frank Ragnow can begin? Just because you know that Frank right now is tearing up his body for the Detroit Lions. He's going to go out there, and I think Mitt May is one who said he goes out there and not just plays injured, but he plays at a high level, and that continuity is key. And I agree with that. You want to be able to make sure, because every time you lose somebody from that line, all of a sudden we're like, oh man, the run blocking is not as good. Oh man, Jared Goff, even if he's not getting sacked, we notice there's a little bit more of him having to do that little curl out of the pocket and throw it into the dirt of the people or throw it away, which he did a lot more last year. But I do agree with the essence of what Mitt May is saying. And I'm glad to see the chat. Vincent E. Ragnow deserves a pay raise. Vincent E. Lions hold all the leverage with Enzo. Expert Swamby, he put Frank, with the tough emojis, man. What up, though, with Detroit? Gunny Frank the Tank is as tough as they come. So our chat overall is saying, hey, listen, this is a guy that you want to make sure you could take care of. But I don't even know if that's even the question. I'm sure if Brad could pay and take care of everybody, he would. I would assume Frank is one of those guys that you do something for, though, before the season, especially with some of the other ones that have been sacrificed to this point. And I see John Henry in the chat. He says they negotiated that contract, and Ragnow agreed to it, not really knowing if he'd play those last 2 years. Now he looks like he wants to play still, so just guarantee at least this year.
Yeah, and so there's a couple of different ways that they can go about this. And Christian Buher, the same guy that wrote the original article, did come up with what he believes could be a solution. And in the case, and what Christian Buher wrote was that they extend him for 3 years, $48 million, which would make him the 3rd highest paid. It still wouldn't give him the same average annual value as a Creed Humphrey and Cam Jurgens, who are both much younger, by the way, and guarantee him $32 million. So the next couple of years would be Frank Ragnow on a contract that he's probably not super happy with, but in the next 3, he would at least get $32 million out of it. But at the end of those now 5 years, which to me, it's kind of hard to imagine Frank Ragnow playing for 5 more years. Frank Ragnow would be 33. I have some doubts about whether a contract like that would be advantageous down the road, but you can also in the NFL, and I wasn't 100% sure about this, but I read some language on it to where the Lions, if they wanted to, they could renegotiate with Frank Ragnow right now. And I don't know if you got that, JV Smooth, just the contract renegotiations from the NFL's website, just so we can kind of read this together and try to understand. Whoops, the last part of it got cut off. But the first renegotiation of a veteran contract can occur at any time, but any subsequent increase in salary during the original terms of the contract can only happen 12 months after the most recent negotiation. Teams can't renegotiate terms from any prior year of a contract after the final regular season game. Terms for the contract cannot be renegotiated. So it looks like the Lions could try to renegotiate the next couple of years right now, but it's something, unfortunately, that the Lions are going to have to deal with. We thought as fans that maybe it was just giving the guys on their rookie contracts bags, which they did with Kirby Joseph, and you think they're going to do with Hutch. They've obviously already done with Panay, Amon-Ra, Ali McNeil, and of course Jared Goff, who wasn't on his rookie contract, but they gave him a better contract for him. So that's not it, though. That's certainly not it, because it looks like Frank Ragnow, wants to get what he is worth. But unfortunately, if they were to do that for him and Alex Anzalone, although the next couple of years would be fine, the next year for Anzalone and the next couple of years for Frank Ragnow, they're not going to be necessarily cheap down the road, and then maybe you have to make some decisions about some other guys. I know the Lions are going to try to pay everybody, but having to pay Anzo and Frank, that might complicate things for some other guys. Maybe not. We shall see, but it's hurdles that great teams with great rosters have to overcome, and that's why every single year the Super Bowl window, you want to try to take advantage. And unfortunately, the Lions, for whatever reason, for whatever circumstances, were not able to do that the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I see you. What up, though, with Detroit Gunny? And shout out to all the other OGs in the chat, from Grim, Ed Catalius, Xavier D, Dante L. There's so many you people here supporting us, and we appreciate it. Smash that like button to further support. Share the stream if you can. But what up, though, with Detroit Gunny says Creed Humphrey makes $18 million a year, which is double of Frank's current salary. What is that middle ground? Because that's what I say. Like, I'm sure that there is some middle ground that both of them believe they have to reach, because him playing on half the salary of Humphrey and it being unguaranteed money for the final 2 years, that to me is a little concerning in a violent sport like this one, in which Frank's going to give you everything. That's the one thing that is never a question with Frank. In any negotiation, this. He's going to go out there and give you every single thing. But I just wonder how much injuries in the past, like if you're going to go out there and make sure Davenport is here, it would make sense to say, you know what, let's make sure that we can take care of Frank in some way, shape, or form too. I would happen to believe that Frank Ragnow plays a much vital and significant role on this offensive line. Yeah, and keep that. And I saw somebody earlier say, keep the trenches ugly. I absolutely love that.
Hey, and Frank Ragnow, and that's the most affectionate thing. He does keep the trenches ugly. Nobody can muck it up from the center position quite like Frank Ragnow. And just to clarify one thing, Frank Ragnow's average annual value is not the $9 million. So it's about like 13.5. And I guess with the way that they structured the contract, probably got all of his guaranteed money. That's why he's not making as much this year. So it doesn't make half of Creed Humphrey. But, you would like in a perfect world for Frank Ragnow's salary to be more in line with a Creed Humphrey. But at the end of the day, Creed Humphrey's younger. I think he's a little bit better right now. And the Chiefs have also won a couple of Super Bowls. So they don't have the organizational pressure that the Lions do. And Greg Rounds, 22 guys on the IR, that's not whatever reason. The reason I said whatever reason is because the previous year they were more healthy and they didn't get it done. The last year they certainly weren't healthy and didn't get it done. So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It matters for sure. There's a lot of context that has to be involved in it. But the point I was trying to make is the more years you don't get it done, the more potential headaches you're going to have to deal with in the offseason. It looks like Brad Holmes and the Lions are trying to navigate some new waters. Have they navigated the waters that they've had to navigate brilliantly up to this point? Absolutely. But this is a whole different challenge. But Brad Holmes is up to it. I really believe that Brad Holmes is up to it, and he'll ultimately make the right decision.
That's what I was going to ask you, because you're right. This is probably the noisiest offseason for Brad Holmes. This is what we were talking about. He had passed kind of your first mark of rebuilding. Yeah. He had passed the second mark of giving you a contender. The third mark is how long can he actually keep that window open, which is something he stood up on the podium and said, this is what we're here to do. Not just cute seasons, not just short-term success, even if we punch the ticket now, but long-term success and to keep this window going based on a system. And that to me is where I agree 100% with you. I do believe that he is up for it. And I wanted to ask you this, though, regardless of whatever decision he decides to make, and we know that, we're going to enjoy this season and the next, how comfortable are you with the foundation and with the things he's already done to this point, no matter which way it goes, with what this Lions team is going to be moving forward? Because I can tell you this, I'm very confident. I'm very comfortable. When you start to look at his drafts, on draft night, sometimes the ways that we react to it based on what we think are current needs, that's where I go back to Brad's clearly hedging his bets right now, clearly hedging his hands right now, clearly trying to make sure to, in certain regards, you see the Ratledge pick, and you see what he did, along that defensive line with Tyleik Williams in the interior. That's where I'm like, you know what? He's hedging his bets. So we want that edge so bad. But if you're thinking long term, if you're thinking right now, I do believe that he did a lot to make sure that these noises can have as minimal impact negatively as possible.
Yeah, this is tough. And one more comment that I want to get to. It's from Frank Ragnow. I mean, no, it's from Eric Allen about Frank Ragnow, and I can't see it, but I remember what you said. 33 is not old for an offensive lineman, for interior offensive lineman. I'm talking about Frank Ragnow with the toe problems that he's going to have to deal with, playing a season on a torn meniscus, playing a season on a partially torn pec. That's the type of attrition that wears on certain NFL players. Would I put it past Frank Ragnow to play throughout his age 33 year if they were to extend him 3 years, 48? Would I put it past him? No, not necessarily, but it's certainly a lot to ask. But I think right now, just to give where I really stand on this, because I'm trying to do as good of a job as I can as presenting both sides. Yeah. I think you have to try to make Frank Ragnow happy. I'm not saying do anything reckless, give him an extension in which he's paid more than a Creed Humphrey. I would not do that, for the record. But at the end of the day, if there's a way that you can renegotiate, give him something in the next couple of years that isn't him playing on no guaranteed money, or even an extension, I'd prefer a 2-year extension, but maybe that's not realistic. I think you do everything in your power to retain Frank Ragnow, because the Lions need him. Mm-hmm. To me, he's one of their non-negotiables. I'm not in the business of being like, oh, they drafted Tate Ratledge, he's going to be the center of the future, let's just groom him right now. Lions are trying to win a Super Bowl. To me, on the offensive line, you can maybe replace Decker. Like, obviously, like the guards right now are a little not in flux, but not as set as the rest of the offensive line. But Penei Sewell and Frank Ragnow are the ones that, to me, are going to lead this team to a Super Bowl. Those are going to be two of the greatest cogs. Those are really the two reasons why the Lions offensive line is, if not the best in the league, top 2, top 3 at worst, and the engine of this team. Make Frank Ragnow happy. Don't make him play on a contract these next couple of years that is just well below his market value. And I think at the end of the day, the Lions have proven that they value making their own players happy and retaining their own players, as opposed to signing huge contracts to free agents. I think ultimately something gets done. I really do. Because Frank Ragnow, he's not someone you can just replace with even a promising young player, or even, hey, put Graham Glasgow there. No, we want Frank Ragnow on this team in any way, shape, or form, aside from giving him something super reckless, which I don't think Brad Holmes would do anyway.
I don't think so. Yeah. Voice Trees, I'm about to throw it over to you, but Elle says, I hope Brad doesn't cave to these jerks. And I would assume that's Alex Anzalone and Frank Ragnow, two of your most important players on both sides of the ball. We know how important Alex Anzalone was, and if we didn't, we sure got a look into it. And it was amazing to see how the national people even said, hey, we see a difference in this defense with Alex Anzalone back. They're able to do some different things because of his IQ. Whatever people want to take away from him, that he doesn't have the necessary end-to-end speed or coverage or this or that. There was a whole lot that these national broadcasts were pointing out, and we saw a difference in this defense being able to manufacture pressure without Hutch and a depleted defensive line, and it was largely because of the IQ of someone like Alexander Anzalone and the nastiness that he has. And you corrected me brilliantly. Play through the whistle, not to a flag. That's what he does. So I said play to the whistle. No, Alexander Anzalone we know he's been one of the ones that's had the NFC North crying. And then from Frank Ragnow, I'm glad that you laid it out the way that you did and saved your take on it later, because I do believe that he is important. You see everything he plays through. And for me, I believe that Brad Holmes does a good job at creating competition without slighting other people on his team. I think that that's something that is vital when you're talking about pushing somebody. It's not just what you do for them contractually, but it's also what you do in that room. And when you're talking about what that next level is, as well as right now, I think you need, obviously, Frank Ragnow, but you also need everybody else on that offensive line, including those young players. And this is where you do have the perfect opportunity by making Frank that much more happy to give the best opportunity to all those young players to get any tutelage, any knowledge. And I think Frank would do this anyway, but I just believe to have that locker room in complete harmony while you're talking about bridging this thing that we haven't seen him do yet in the line with the Lions, because this is the first time they're here. But you're trying to bridge this walk from one window to the next window without losing any and having any step back. I do believe the Lions are positioned for it, and I'm hoping that part of that recipe is, like you said, that phrase is right. Make Frank Ragnow happy.
Yeah. Hey, he has put his body through hell to do what he's done and still play at an extremely high level. When it's all said and done, Frank Ragnow may be entering the Hall of Fame. I'll just say that. He's on that track right now. But JB Smoove, it sounded like you had some thoughts on this situation, so take it away.
No, I just agree with you as well too. Don't, as what one of the chat listeners said as well too, which I don't think Brad is going to do, don't sit here and let Anzo or Ragnow bully you into giving you like this huge contract extension, but be fair and come to them with a fair number that you can be happy with at the end of the day. As you said, Flannel, at least try to make him as happy as much as you can, because you don't know. Half of the people think that he's on the verge of retirement, and you really don't want to extend someone and give him that fully guaranteed money when, a year or two from now, it's like, no, I'm calling it quits. I'm in retirement as well too. But also, as a Lions organization, stay in front of this, stay ahead of this, and do the best that you can, because in previous years it's always been about money and contract extensions. That's always put a bad name on this franchise and the owners as well too, starting way back with Calvin Johnson. It was always about money, and then as of recently, the whole CJ thing, and from this previous season, Carlton Davis, who was someone who said he wanted to be here, but then at the same time they just didn't see it fit as well. So just stay out ahead of this, and just make them a fair offer. And if they choose to turn it down, hey, at least you try it.
I see Grim in the chat says it's going to be a long offseason. You know what's interesting? This is now the month of June, the second day of it. We have Lions football that will be on our TV in the next month. That's what's crazy. It feels like we have more time, but realistically, in a few months, we're going to be sitting here watching Detroit Lions preseason football. And us getting into the swing of things with watch parties and coverage and fan interaction, and the season's going to be upon us like that. We're going to blink and it's going to be here. And I do agree with this. Grammy put the popcorn emojis, 2 of them. I do agree with that. I do believe that some way or another, there's going to be some things that are resolved with Anzo, with Frank, with Zadarius. Obviously, we're going to get what the answers are sooner than I think a lot of people are expecting or thinking.
Yeah, and man, if you're asking me just really quick, and this isn't a shot at Anzo in any way, shape, or form, who's more imperative to get a deal done, I would definitely say it's Frank Ragnow for sure. I don't know. There's also the angle, and I don't want to elaborate on this too much, that if they were to give him an extension, Frank Ragnow would still be on an advantageous contract for the team, not necessarily for him for the next couple of years, and hopefully they can cash one in. Because at the end of the day, if Frank Ragnow is on an extension a couple of years from now for 3 more years after the Lions have already cashed one in, who cares at that point? We all know how we feel. That's why, and this is where I like to bring it back to this. This is why, one of the reasons why Creed Humphrey, apart from being just a damn good center and, in my opinion, a little bit better and certainly younger and more healthy than a Frank, why his contract is just Chiefs and Chiefs fans are pretty just whatever about it, is because the Chiefs have already cashed one in. Cam Jurgens is not worth the money that he's paid. I'll just say that. But the Eagles got a Super Bowl, so I don't think they really care too much. Let's make that happen, Lions. Let's win one in the next couple of years, and then if Ragnow's contract or his extension is a little expensive, who gives a damn? Because I'll tell you what, the Lions need Frank Ragnow. As I said before, they need him. If they are serious about their Super Bowl window, which they are, I think Frank Ragnow is somebody that has to be taken care of. Smartly, but even maybe a little not smartly. Not reckless, but just take care of Frank Ragnow, please.
Listen, man, Wheezy D313 is all over the place. Listen, if we ever thought that this was Stick's burner account, this is not. He says, this is all Jared Goff's fault, high key. I'm ready for a rookie quarterback deal. Wheezy! What? Come on, Wheezy.
He doesn't like Jared Goff. But no. I think Neil was pointing this out that at least for this year, like, there's no potential out for a Jared Goff. I think there might be one for 2 years from now. So if you really want to push that agenda,
come on, Weezy.
Yeah. If you really want to push that agenda, this year is not the year to do it. But I think there is a scenario where potentially they could get rid of him in a couple of years. Not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that's when.
I hope nobody clips you saying that in the wrong light.
Oh God, yeah. Okay, no. Oh wow, it's actually it's actually after 2027. So the point is that Jared Goff's going to be your quarterback for at least 3 more years. No question about it, because getting rid of him would just leave you in dead cap hell. But if you want to have those discussions, then be my guest. Yeah. Hopefully by then the Lions will have a Super Bowl.
And he's talented enough. I know it's not necessarily a Jared Goff segment, but when you're talking about the offensive line, obviously naturally your mind goes there. And I do believe this. I believe that Jared Goff is enough for this team to win. We've seen him have one fabulous playoff run, and then we've seen him have one really bad playoff game at the wrong time. Yeah. And, I don't know, man. I'm looking forward to this team hopefully being able to find some type of harmony heading into, not that they don't, but as it relates to the contract stuff that you hear from Anzo and Frank. You want to see those guys happy.